All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here in Gran Canaria, the main island for the Gran Canary Islands, off the northwestern coast of Africa, and you can see it's a wonderful day outside there. Today we'll be flying over to back to Africa, and I am not sure how to pronounce this, where we're going, so I'm not even going to try. But we'll be landing in Mauritania, and we'll be coming in on the Echo Romeo Echo Nancy 3A arrival for an instrument landing system on landing on runway 02. We're going to have tailwinds for most of today's flight, and we'll have crosswinds, about 12 knots at landing. So should be for a fun flight. We're going to have tailwinds most of the way, and that's going to shave about an hour off of today's flight. So looks like we'll roll out of here around 1,400 feet, and we'll be climbing on up today for a cruising altitude of 240, 24,000 feet. So hang tight, got a few things configured here, and we should be off in just a few minutes. It looks like most of this bad weather is localized around the Canary Islands here, so on Gran Canaria. Once we clear the area, we should be free and clear of most of this bad weather. All right, we are free and clear for departure. Please hang on, and we'll be up and out of here in just a few minutes. Throttle up. Brakes released. Airspeed alive. We're up. Positive rate of climb, gear up. Autopilot engaged. Altitude set. Flaps up. Up we go.
119.3.019er. Canary Center Foxtrot, Mike 1019er, is at 700 feet, climbing 7,000 feet. Foxtrot, Mike 1019er, Canary Center altimeter 30.06, continue to echoes at plant.
7,000. Up we go. All right, into the soup for a little bit. Once we hit our first nav point, ECOS here, we'll make a right turn, and we'll swing back around to the southwest eventually. We're going to be flying out over the ocean, but we're going to come into the western coast of Africa, and we're going to cruise down the coast for a while. Probably be about 50 miles inland to 5 miles, different places. Should be a beautiful flight. Everything looks free and clear of bad weather at our landing point today. Just some light winds. It looks like this storm is just kind of centered around the island here, so you can see here it is, and there's some light rain around. But if we back out on weather radar, everything looks nice and dry. So interesting island.
Connor, 019er climb and maintain 15,000 feet. Climb and maintain 15,000 feet, Docker, 019er.
15,000. roughly 3.5 minutes before we start our turn to the southwest. And we are out of the clouds. We're actually above them right now. We should be pretty far above. And I imagine by the time we depart the area, we should be cleared to continue our climb to flight level 240. Once we reach our cruising altitude, we'll be there almost for the entire flight, up until initial. Approaching flight level 130. Roughly a minute and a half remaining in the climb. Now that we're out of the soup, everything looks really dry around us. So I wonder if Gran Canaria just gets lots of local rain showers. Kind of seems like it's a really windy island.
Charter 019er climb and maintain flight level 240. Climb and maintain flight level 240 Doctor 019er.
240, dialed in, climbing. We should be there in about 6 minutes, a little bit less than 6. Nice crescent moon there in the sky above us. That's really pretty. Looks like it's waxing from a new moon a few days ago, on its way to full. Alright, this is where we all just sit back and relax and enjoy the flight. Even though you can't see her under all those clouds, that's where the Canary Island was, Gran Canaria. I wonder what the food is like there. That is really good. Looks like they generate electricity through a lot of wind farms. So I'm guessing it's windy almost all year round there. And when I landed, it was like really difficult, as the wind was variable. It would go from a headwind to a crosswind to a slight tailwind back to a headwind, and it was not a pretty landing, that's for sure. But yeah, we made it down. It's rather white knuckled, I think, was for me. Just crossed over flight level 210, roughly a minute and a half remaining to climb. Approaching flight level 240, cruising altitude. Here in just a few minutes, we'll be making that final left-hand turn for the first big leg of our cruise today. Just another minute. Here we go. A little choppy. Nothing too bad. It's much worse on the way in. Calling for 6 minutes on this leg. Let's check the VFR map and see where that puts us. Okay. So it has this coming here to Remgi, and then down to Rodham, and here's where we meet the coastline, cross over, and Arena, once we reach this nav point, we'll start to make preparations for initial approach into the local area. Was showing the winds earlier coming across like this at about 12 knots, so hoping it's not too bad of a landing. Would like to have one landing to kind of redeem myself after the last one, but we'll see. Flying's easy, landing is always the hard part. Right about this area here should be the halfway point. Maybe a little bit closer to Delta Kilo Hotel here. So, we are 21 minutes in today's flight, well underway. And we are now at cruising altitude. Cruising altitude, flight level 240, 24,000 feet. Looks like it's turned out to be a beautiful day out there. Light clouds. I'm imagining once we reach the coastline, a lot of these clouds will break up, turn into high altitude haze. turning. So this will be probably the longest single straight leg on today's trip. 24 minutes remaining on this leg once we complete our turn. It is about 1 p.m. local time, and looking at 2:45 arrival time, so roughly an hour and 45 minutes according to the flight computer. Probably closer to 2 hours when you take in initial approach, final approach, slowdowns. Yeah, I was hoping to be a bit further on the southwestern coast, but I had no idea the Canary Islands were as far north as they were off the African continent. And when I saw them on the flight map, I said, I want to go there. Last time I talked about Canary diamonds, and they come out of this ground, this beautiful natural yellow color, and you can change the color of a diamond through man-made means, and it's called vapor deprivation, where you submit the stone to a chemical gas under high heat and pressure, and those gas molecules adhere to the diamond and become permanent. But it's only surface layer deep, so they can be worn off or scratched off over time. But the Canary diamonds come out of the ground this beautiful bright yellow color, and years and years and years ago bought one for my wife as a present, and it is super tiny. I mean, it's like an eighth of a carat, maybe, if that. But it's the prettiest color. And this is going back 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, you know, we had to finance the thing for a few years to pay it off, and it was only, I think, $2,000. But today it would probably triple, quadruple the price. They're very hard to get because when they come out of the ground, diamonds are generally mined in old volcanic tubes. It takes a tremendous amount of pressure within the earth to create diamonds. So you're taking carbon, transforming it to a diamond under heat and pressure. But Canary diamonds are very small, and if you get one that's a half a carat to a carat, consider yourself lucky, because not only are those size stones really hard to come by, they're very expensive. In today's market, I could see, you know, for a half carat Canary diamond natural, if you were to find one flawless or close to flawless, I'd imagine just the stone alone would probably set you back $25,000-$30,000 at least. But check them out on the internet when you have a chance. They are just the prettiest things. And if you have a special person in your life, you want to surprise them, that'll be an attention grabber for sure. At the very least, a conversation piece. Yeah, something to talk about. Another one of my favorite stones is alexandrite. That comes out of the Ural Mountains, Russia. The mines there are only open, I think, 3 or 4 months out of the year, because the other 8 or 9 months is just frozen and cold, and I don't think it's warm enough for the miners to safely mine, and road conditions are probably frozen, icy, you know, the worst imaginable conditions to drive on. But alexandrite is really an unusual stone. They're considered to be dichroic, which means they present 2 colors, and it depends on the light. If you're under normal daylight conditions, they appear to be bright blue, and you get these little flashes of blue when you view them in the sun. But under dim light or candlelight, they appear red. So there's a saying for alexandrite that they're sapphires by day, rubies by night. And I got one for my wife. We have both one natural one, which is really small, and gemstones, aside from diamonds, can vary in weight, and alexandrite's a little bit lighter than a diamond, so a half carat alexandrite will appear bigger than a half carat diamond. And the natural one we have is about a half carat. It's a little bit under, but it's bigger than a quarter carat and smaller than a third. And that one was $500 or $600, and kind of has a cat eye appearance to it. We have another one that's actually man-made, so it's not worth but a fraction of what a natural one would be. But the synthetic alexandrite that we have is clear, almost like a diamond, and that color shift on that thing is truly incredible. It's day and night difference. So personally, if you have a significant other and you really want to get them something special, personally, I think standard diamonds are overdone. Everyone has one, or everyone wants one. But alexandrite is one of these stones. It was very popular the late 1800s, turn of 20th century, and once diamonds kind of got promoted as the stone to give your loved one, alexandrite and everything else kind of fell by the wayside. And I think from like 1910 to 1930, alexandrites could have been picked up for pennies on the dollar. But in the 40s and 50s, resurgence kind of upped their value and popularity. So, but they are truly a sight to behold. Just my 2 cents on gemstones. We are 38 minutes into today's flight, with 13 and a half minutes remaining on this leg of today's journey. Rodham is our next nav point, and we've got 2 more after that, but once we reach Lolos, I'd expect the ground to start clearing us for descent and preparations on our initial approach into the area. So yeah, looks like we have some clouds forming up ahead, and not sure if those will go inland past the coast, or if they're just localized to warm water in the Atlantic here. So everything is kind of clear. You see that big wall over there of clouds, and it kind of extends pretty far over from left to right. Looks like it ends somewhere in this area, and kind of have something else that's forming out over there. It's kind of hard to see through the haze over there, but yeah, whatever is going on over here, I don't think we're gonna run into that when we land today. expecting our landing to be around 3 p.m. local time, give or take. Yeah, I did something this morning I haven't done in like over a year. I made coffee with whole beans, ground them up. Been doing the pre-ground coffee for a while. Seems like about year and a half ago, 2 years ago, coffee prices kind of jumped up. Used to always grind my own beans, and the best place for, I won't say cheap coffee, but inexpensive coffee that was good coffee was World Market. You could buy these bags. They were £1.50 bags, so 24-ounce bags of coffee, and they came in like Costa Rican Sumatran, which is my favorite dark roast coffee, and Peruvian, and they had about 6 different choices. And going back like 10 years ago, you could buy them for $6.99 a bag. Then they went up a little bit. The price kind of stabilized out around $8.99, and then about 4 years ago it was $9.99, and it was at that price for years. But back a little over a year ago, price jumped up to $14.99 for a bag, and yeah, I thought that was a lot excessive for coffee. So switched back to store brand, and been drinking like Folgers pre-ground stuff, and we could buy a 2.5-pound can of that at a local Sam's Club for $8.99. It's not bad coffee, but it's not the best. You know, it's like middle of the road. And my wife got me this bag of French roast beans that are really good, and it was a Christmas present. Just opened this morning, ground up beans for a pot of coffee, and it is amazing how good coffee tastes when you haven't had it in like a year. So yeah, it's really good. So I am gonna savor this pot. I'm on my first cup right now, and probably go through one more, maybe 2 by the time the flight's over. But I'm mixing it in almost equal proportions to milk and cream, so it's like a half milk, half coffee. So the ratio I like for really rich, robust coffees is a mixture of 1/3 cup cream and milk and in that 1/3, it would roughly be 2/3 cream, 1/3 milk to 2/3 coffee, remaining cup. And to me, that's the happy place. Years ago, I never knew coffee tasted good. When I was growing up, it was like something the adults drank, and my grandparents would sometimes drink tea, and I never got a taste for tea. Never had a taste for coffee when I was younger, so I avoided both like the plague. But I was 17 when I first joined the Air Force. Had to have parental consent, and I was 18 when I arrived at my first duty station, which is Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. And we had a snack bar, and the snack bar was run by this Filipino gentleman, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I think his name was Jose, and he actually grew coffee trees, shade coffee, and he roasted his own beans. He would bring those in and serve them. So this was back in 1988, and if you wanted coffee by the cup, I think it was 15 cents a cup. But if you wanted to buy a monthly membership in which you could have unlimited cups, I think it was $5 a person for monthly membership. And he would bring these beans in, like 10-pound sacks, and grind them in the snack bar. And I would smell it, and it smelled good, but I would always say, nah, not for me. Well, there was a huge strike. All the base workers went on strike, and I got put doing snack bar duty. So I was in the snack bar for basically a day, and I was asked to make coffee. And we had one of these big coffee urns that you could make, I don't know how many cups of coffee, 100 cups of coffee. So it's like 5 gallons of coffee. It's a lot of coffee. Now, I think I'm exaggerating a little bit. I don't think they hold exactly 5 gallons. I think it's closer to maybe 2 or 3 pots of coffee. So maybe a gallon of water is closer to what they really hold. So my manager goes, "Hey, why don't you make coffee?" I said, "Okay." And I never, ever made coffee in my life. Never. So, it looked pretty easy. 2 ingredients, water, coffee. How hard can that be? So, the urn had these lines on it, and it was really easy to tell where you filled it up to. You filled to here. And there was a line, and there was the word here with an arrow pointing up to the line. So that was really obvious. So I filled the coffee urn to that level that said here. Well, on the top there was a basket, and the hot water would percolate up through this tube and then drip down. So it was a percolating coffee urn. But I didn't see the markings on the basket. So I figured, well, just fill the basket up. I did. And, flipped the switch. It was plugged in. And it starts bubbling, percolating. Usually took about a half hour. And people started coming out for their daily coffee, and they would take a sip, and they would make these really awful faces, like I gave them a cup of the most bitter, awfulest, disgustingest, vilest tasting stuff. And my manager, I think he was the second or third person, and he goes, "What did you do?" I said, "I made coffee." He goes, "Well, how much water did you put in?" I said, "I filled it up to the line." He goes, "How much coffee did you put in?" I said, "I filled the basket up." And his face just goes white. He starts looking at me, and smile kind of overtook his face. He goes, "You've never made coffee before, have you?" I said, "No, that's how you filled the basket up." So he goes, "No," he goes, let me show you." So he dumped out the coffee urn and dumped the basket out. He showed me where the fill to here line was, and I was like, "Oh, that was a revelation in coffee making." So they moved me over to the parts room, parts department, where people would come in looking for parts that we had on stock to repair circuitry, different transistors and integrated circuit chips and resistors, capacitors, inductors, transformers, wire, that kind of stuff. And I kind of like that better than the snack bar, because I spent my 8 hour shift just reading books, and I'd have like one customer every, I don't know, maybe hour. And it all depends on workload. Some days were busier than others, but the time I was in that parts department, I read all of Battlefield Earth, and this was before I knew L. Ron Hubbard was a Scientologist. But I will say that his early works, even though the guy was insane, Battlefield Earth was a decent book. They tried to make it into a movie with John Travolta and Forrest Whitaker, and I think Forrest Whitaker is a great actor. I really don't care for John Travolta. I generally don't care for any Scientologists, to be honest with you, because I think they're just effing weird, to be honest with you. But I do like Forrest, and I think he did a good job, but that movie just did not translate well into a book. A couple reasons. One, the book is like 1,400 pages. It's a big, big book, and you cannot jam that book into a 2.5 hour movie. Secondly, just John Travolta to me just oozes creep. And I just couldn't get into it. So so I read Battlefield Earth and a bunch of Stephen King. I started with Cujo, which I think was his first published piece of work, and Salem's Lot, Christine, his earlier horror that back in '88 wasn't so old. I think Cujo was published in 77, 78, and about the same for Salem's Lot. Christine, I think, was 79 or 80. And I was kind of hooked on Stephen King for a while, up until he wrote the Gunslinger books, and I love the first 3 books. The Dark Tower, The Drawing of the Three, and The Wastelands, I thought were really good pieces of fiction. The remaining books, up until the last and final, I thought were very good. Not as good as the first three, but pretty good pieces of fiction. His last book was an abysmal piece of work in which either he was rushed to complete by his publisher, or he had the biggest case of writer's block. And you could tell it was just nonsense after nonsense. It was regurgitated word salad. And in the author's afterward mention, he basically got all high and mighty and said, if you don't like it, don't read my stuff. So I said, okay, Mr. King, I have nothing but the utmost respect to you. I think you're a super creative writer. But if this is what you're going to do to your fans, you just lost one. I will never read another piece of your work again, and I haven't since. So that's just my take on that. Don't let me take away anything. If you love his works, please continue reading them. But that's just my take on it. So I'm just kind of old school that way, you know. I like what I like, and when someone betrays my tastes, especially my trust, I'm not gonna deal with them. Now, if he were my neighbor, I'd be friendly with the man. So I think he's a nice guy. I think he does the right thing by his community and by his fans. But yeah, not that one, not that story. Anyways, so on top of that, I think the Gunslinger series is 6 or 7 books. And Hollywood tried to make a movie out of it. It had Idris Elba in it, and I love Idris Elba. I think he is a superb actor. And you just can't take 7 books of literature and jam it into a cohesive, coherent, understandable storyline that lasts an hour and 37 minutes. You just can't do it. And if you had never read the books, you'd probably say, that was a good movie, but I don't get a few things. If you read the books, you're just standing at back, maw agape, saying, what the was that? You know, why? It was nonsense. It's kind of like taking Homer's Iliad and trying to turn that into a movie that lasts an hour and a half, and expect the story to be coherent, cohesive, something to draw people in and hold their attention. I think you'd have tons of people saying, what's up with these Greeks? You know, I hear all those good things about, you know, Greek literature and stuff, but I don't get this. And yeah, I don't know if that was Mr. King's idea. I hope not. I think that was just a Hollywood thing. But if they had taken that movie and turned it into 7 or more movies in a series, they would have done it a million times more justice than taking 7 books and turning it into a condensed hour and 37 minutes. So that's all I'm saying. Enough said. Mr. Elba, Mr. King, if you guys are listening, no offense, I think you're both brilliant, especially Idris. I love your acting, but yeah. So after that, I just read different other pieces of sci-fi. Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Brahma. I really enjoyed that. I think that was a brilliant piece of sci-fi, science fiction. Oh, here we are, 1 hour and 1 minute into today's flight. We've got roughly 5 minutes remaining on this leg of our flight plan today. And looks like we're drawing pretty close to the coastline. There it is right down here. And we should be making landfall here in just a few minutes. Just a few minutes. We're gonna fly over this little peninsula, and once we clear the water on the other side of it, we should be making landfall for the most of the remainder of the flight. Not all of it. Some land, some water here and there. There's more of the Western Sahara Desert. It's huge, it's big, and I've never met anyone from this part of the world, but I would imagine if you live in any desert, but the Sahara, I'm not sure if it's the biggest desert in the world, but I think it's the hottest. You have to be practically superhuman in my eyes to live there. So I just give a big tip of the hat and a super nod to the inhabitants of the Sahara. I think what you do is super incredible, and maybe in my next life I'll actually get to check it out. I missed my opportunities in this one. So here's the peninsula down here. Looks like some really pretty mineral formations in this water. It's probably highly alkaline. You see this like in Death Valley, California. You see these really pretty colors in the water. These blues and yellows and oranges and reds. And yeah, it's because the mineral content in the water turns it alkaline. It's really incredible. You know, you wouldn't think it supports life, but it does. Lots of it, actually. That is, that's a sight. That is a sight. Yeah, any human who can live in some of the most inhospitable parts of the world has garnered my respect. I mean, it's not something anyone can do. And I think if you were to take your average American, myself included, drop them out in that desert and say, we're going to hook you up with a family and you're going to do what they do for a month, eat what they eat, dress like they dress. I think after just a couple hours, we'd be ready to call it quits. So, yeah, tip of the hat, guys, ladies and gentlemen, tip of the hat. But that is some really pretty coast where the desert meets the ocean.
All right, 1 minute until our next nav point here. We'll be flying over this airport. It's underneath us. I haven't done this in a while. Let's pop outside. That's pretty incredible. So today we're headed off down this way. We're gonna make landfall about right here. We're gonna make a turn, and here's the turn. 24 minutes on this leg, and once we complete this step of our journey, I'd expect we will be pretty close to get instructions for initial into our landing area today. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce this, but it's spelled N-O-U-A-D. I'm sorry, N-O-U-A-C-H-I-B-O-U. And I have no idea how to pronounce that. And the country it's in is Mauritania, and we're flying to the international airport here in this country. So it should be a really pretty landing. It looks like it's on a peninsula. So we're gonna fly past it, and we're gonna turn around to the northeast for an ILS instrument landing system approach on runway 02. And that's the only runway they have at this airport. So it's supposed to be windy when we arrive in the area, and I'm hoping it's not like the Canary Islands where I did make a go around, and second attempt we ended up bouncing a few times and landing off almost in the grass, but as embarrassing it is, I don't hide anything, so how I land is how you see it. Mistakes I make or how you see them. So yeah, that's why I don't do this in real life. I think they only let you bounce once, and they take the keys away from you. So it's a good thing about flight simulators. You can make all the mistakes in the world, and yeah, no one seems to really care. So all right, I will be back in a few. Take the dogs out, fill the coffee back up, and I'll be back in about 3 to 5. coffee's filled. There's the coast down there. For some reason, I am particularly fond of deserts. I grew up in Massachusetts, which is not a desert. It's actually very mountainous and hilly. Lots of valleys. Yeah, there's some flatlands, but it's mostly hilly and bumpy. No deserts. Lots of skiing. Lots of places to ski. Big outdoor winter state. And yeah, believe it or not, quite ironically, I don't know how to ski. I don't know how to skate. I can drive a toboggan, but yeah, I never did those things growing up. I tried to ice skate when I was younger, and that was a failed endeavor. But shooting down a hill on a toboggan or a sled was always fun. But yeah, I never did all the outdoor stuff. Never had a snowmobile. Yeah, none of that. So when I was 5 or 6, my grandparents had a set of encyclopedias that I loved to just open and look at the pictures and read what I could understand. But when I discovered deserts and saw pictures, I was enamored, because to me they were so different and unlike anything I had ever seen. So when I was growing up, you know, I didn't know that where we lived there were no deserts anywhere. So I'd always be on the lookout. It wasn't until I was 7 I learned that the United States does have a desert, but it's way out on the west coast. So it could have been a million miles away. As far as I cared, I would never see it. And it wasn't until 2016, the last company I worked for, whose name I shall not mention, would send me out to California for training to learn new pieces of equipment, which I serviced. And I always enjoyed going out to California to visit different things that you don't see on the East Coast, different types of food. The food overall I always thought was really good. Even street food was really tasty and delicious. And it wasn't until 2016 I said, you know what, I'm gonna go see Death Valley. You know, it was a place I had felt drawn to. So I asked my instructor if I could clock out early on a Friday and drive up to Death Valley and spend 2 nights, came back on Sunday. He said, yeah, go for it. So yeah, I had drove up on the first night, stayed about 2 hours outside of Death Valley. There were hotels within Death Valley, but they were all booked up. So you know, went in, drove around all day, and I thought it was beautiful, the things I saw there. And yeah, I personally I feel more at home in a desert than I do anywhere else. And yeah, that's weird. I grew up far away from a desert, and yet I feel drawn to them. So go figure. But look at those dunes down there. Wow. We have roughly 14 minutes and 30 seconds on this leg of today's journey. Let's look at the VFR map. I believe we are at the halfway point, maybe a little bit past. I think right around here was halfway, considering where we started at Gran Canary Island. So yeah. Once we reach Lolos, I would expect to receive instructions between Lolos and Arena to start our descent, marking the beginning of our initial approach into the area. Today's landing will be done under Instrument Landing Systems, ILS, so we'll let the navigation take us in, and we'll pick it up around 300 to 500 feet above ground level. You can see the winds picked up at some point when I was running my lower jaw. Went from roughly 20 knots to 50, so that should die down the closer we get to the ground, but we do have the crosswind coming across the runway, so that'll make things a little funky on landing. And I learned the hard way on my last flight, the software does not give you a good indication of shifting winds, so that's something you have to feel for yourself. When you grab the controls and all of a sudden your nose starts to veer off to one direction, you correct and you straighten out, and it veers off to the other. So usually if it's just a constant wind, you can apply a little bit of rudder pedal pressure. So if you have wind coming across from the left, you left to right, you apply left rudder. If it's coming from right to left, you apply right rudder, and that keeps your nose pointed straight at the runway. And sometimes you have to apply a little bit of yoke to correct for those movements. But usually with light winds, you can overcome that just with rudder pedals. So the approach to Canary Island, I'd apply left rudder, and all of a sudden I was overshooting to that direction. Then I apply right, straighten out. Then all of a sudden I had to apply left. And I was like, this is going to be rough. And first approach was failed. I had to go missed, came back around, and everything was looking better. And I was on straight to the runway on manual control, and was about ready to touch down when this gust just pushed me way to the left. And I tried to correct with push me to the right, and I corrected with left rudder. And yeah, I was in a stall at that point, and landed off center to the to the right on the runway. And by the time I had brakes on, I was off the runway, but not on the grass. I was on a connecting what do they call them, taxiways. So yeah, so I am hoping today I look a little bit less foolish. Yeah, I'm not expecting much, but you know, set low expectations and surprise yourself is what I say. At least when it comes to myself. So. At least with the flight sim anyways. So. It's always when you don't expect much, you end up surprising yourself and end up walking away feeling like a rock star. Kind of tap myself on the chest and say, I did that. Yeah, the Gobi Desert, China is big, but I think the Saharan Desert is the largest in the world. I could be wrong, but this thing is massive. Massive. This is where we're landing today. Pretty sure. Way off in the distance. At ground level, or at sea level, the furthest you can see is 12 miles. And that's where the curvature of the Earth prevents us from seeing over it. But once you're up in the air, your range is extended because the curvature extends further out. So at 24,000 feet, and I don't have the charts in front of me, but we're up, you know, almost 5 miles. So we can see a lot further over where you can at sea level. So I don't know the exact number, but I think at almost 5 miles up, we can probably see 100 to 150 miles before the curvature of the Earth. So our horizon is pushed out several times further than it is at sea level by a factor of 10, I think. Don't quote me on that. I could be, and usually am wrong, but yeah, I think that peninsula out there is where we're landing. So here at this next nav point, Lolos, we're going to make a left-hand turn. We're going to cut over this part of the desert. We're going to pass that peninsula. We're going to head south of it, and then we're going to turn back for our initial and final approach into the area. So yeah, this is I believe the third or fourth flight, and I'm not counting the flight out to the Canary Islands, but basically we've been flying over this not for 3 solid days, only a few hours over the course of 3 days, but we've been flying over this for like 8 hours, and it just seems to go on forever. So it's massive. The good thing is I don't think we have to reset our barometer. We took off at sea level and we're landing at sea level. The runway at the Canary Island, I believe, was 5 or 6 meters above sea level. Where we're landing is 5 meters above sea level, 15 feet, roughly 16 feet. So I don't think that's enough difference to make a change in barometric pressure. Four minutes to low lows. So if our ETA, our estimated time of arrival, is 14:49, that's 2:49 p.m. We look at our universal time clock here, we're at 14:05, 14:06 local, so it's 2:06 local time. That's roughly 43 minutes remaining in today's flight. So if that's the case, we should be making touchdown in roughly another hour or less. So, yeah. Winds have picked up to 62 knots on a crosswind. Coming from our nose this way across the right part of our nose, left part of our wings, which is why we're leaning into it. We're kind of pointed off to the left to compensate. And I'm so glad we have autopilot, because before autopilot, pilots would have to manually hold the yoke leaning into the wind. And I would imagine that would become exhausting over time, especially on older aircraft that didn't have the hydraulics that modern aircraft have. You were flying by wire. So you moved your yoke, and that would move a piston that had a cog or a wheel at the end of it that had your flight wires that would move your flight surfaces, your rudders and your ailerons and your elevators. So a good thing about that is you can actually feel how the air is moving around the airplane. It's like driving a sports car. You feel really connected to the pavement. You can feel all the bumps and the minute imperfections. It makes you feel connected. Whereas if you drive a luxury sedan that has really decent suspension, you're buffered from that. You don't feel those things because the suspension absorbs those small impacts. So one of the good things, even though flying by wire is difficult, or flying by cable, flying by wire is something different, but flying by cable linked to your flight surfaces would allow you to really feel how the air is moving and how the aircraft is responding to that, so you can make corrections. Now we're turning at Lolos here, making our left-hand turn for initial. So modern aircraft is considered fly-by-wire, where you move your yoke, at least on the bigger aircraft, and just sends a signal down a wire to move that flight surface, so you feel somewhat removed from the sensation of feeling the wind around the airframe, at least on your control surfaces. So, and I'm sure on a nice windy day like today, there would be a lot to feel on those older aircraft, like DC-3s, for example, DC-4s. And those older DC-3 and DC-4s, believe it or not, there's a lot of places in the Caribbean that still use those. They still fly them, cargo aircraft. They're old dual-engine tail-dragging aircraft. So when you're on the ground, your tail is resting on a wheel and you're kind of looking upwards. Isn't until you're moving down the runway when your tail lifts off the ground. So, you know, I think that's incredible for any company, any country, to maintain even a small fleet of aircraft that have been around for 80 plus years. So, well done, you know, well done. I used to fly to Puerto Rico 2 to 4 times a year in my last job, and that's where I first saw a DC-4. I was like, wow. Not only can you see those in a museum, but for a flight crew to not only fly them but to maintain them is incredible, because anytime you need a part for those, it's not like you can go buy it. You probably have to have them fabricated and manufactured. So that involves machinists and engineers to create blueprints and things like that, on top of ground crew to make modifications, remove, replace bad parts. So there's a lot of moving parts, people parts, machine parts, to actually keep that fleet of older aircraft properly maintained and airworthy. So that to me is just incredible. So tip of the hat to those folks doing those things. You guys and ladies are doing a really incredible job. Something about good coffee. All right, here we are. We're going to come down here. It's a little over 100 miles, and then we're going to turn back to the northwest. We're going to reach this nav point, and we're going to swing about to the northeast for our final approach. So if we look at the map, we're at Lolos, about ready to meet Arena here in 20 minutes, and once we reach here, if not before, we should be instructed to start our descent. But Arena marks our first nav point on our initial approach into the local area today. Current time is 2:13 p.m. 14:13. Flight computer is calling for arrival time of 2:44, which is 30 minutes from now, but don't think that's going to be quite accurate. I don't think that takes into account slowing down for initial and final approach. I think total flight time today is going to be close to 2.5 hour mark, so we shall see. Winds now are up to 70 knots, so 70 miles per hour. That's incredible. I did not fill up gas before leaving today, so let's just do that now. Technically, we should have had enough to land, but the software does not calculate correct fuel burns for this, and I think almost every aircraft in the game. At cruise, our fuel consumption should be 42 to 46 gallons per hour, according to published specifications by the manufacturer. However, the software says we're consuming much more than that at 55 GPH, and that's not right. Not right at all. We're not at full throttle. We're actually about 85–90% on the stick there, and once we start our initial approach, we'll be at less than half, probably about a third of throttle on our descent on down. So I've actually run out of fuel twice in the software here when I had fuel that should have given us plenty of range. This airframe has got a total reach of 1,600 nautical miles, but I'd be hard pressed to believe it would actually get 1,000 on a fuel tank of gas, full load of gas, 1,200 at the most. So when I plan the flight, the map gives me a ring where everything in the ring is normal and everything outside of that ring is kind of in shadow. So it shows me my range as a diameter, and when I planned today's flight, we had plenty of range to go further south by about an hour. And yeah, it's kind of sad when you say, okay, we'll give ourselves the amount of fuel plus a buffer of an hour, which I had. We were a little bit under half when we took off, just to find out to go 588 nautical miles that, nope, need more gas. So yeah, I just don't want to run out. I know it's not very realistic to say abracadabra, boom, tanks are full, but Yeah, I've run out twice, and I'd care to not have that happen again. So sorry about that, folks. Back. That was me. There, here's the peninsula we're landing on, and I think the runway is somewhere in this area. Can't see anything, it's so far away. I know it's not at the southern tip, it's further north than that. But within this part is where we will be landing today. Talking about the curvature of the Earth, you can actually look at the horizon and you can see how it's curved. So at almost 5 miles up, we can tell that our planet is not flat, it's round. Technically slightly egg-shaped, but it's that roundness that gives us the inability to see over the horizon. Now, if the planet was flat, we'd just fall off the edge and we'd be floating around dead in space, but it's not. But once you get up to a certain altitude, you can actually see the curvature. You can see how it curves. And if we were to go up another couple miles, that curvature would be more pronounced. And if we're on the space shuttle, the higher we would go up, the more of that curvature we would see until we were in space and could clearly tell that our planet was round. But I think it's amazing that at just a tad under 5 miles, we can see it and we can tell we're not flying on a flat plane, we're flying on a round surface. And I'm not knocking flat earthers. If you want to believe the earth is flat, you go for it. Just don't knock me and others for saying that no, it's round. So yeah, enough said. We have roughly 19 minutes to Arena, and once we make that turn to the northwest, that should put us on the beginning phase of our descent into the area for today's landing. Total flight time so far is 1 hour and 48 minutes. The nav computer still says we're holding on to landing time at 2:47 p.m. p.m. this afternoon, and that is roughly 24 minutes from where we are now, local time at 2:23. I don't think that's going to be accurate. I think we're going to take a little bit longer than that. I think we're looking at closer to 2.5 hours of total flight time than we are 2 hours and 10 minutes. So I could be wrong. I am that a lot, but yeah, I'm anticipating total flight time today to be roughly 2 hours and 45 minutes. But once we turn, this headwind will turn into a tailwind until we get lower to the ground. Then it turns back into a headwind, but it lightens up a good bit. So one thing I've noticed about the software, if we look at actual real-world data, let me show you. If we look at METAR data, and if we look at where we're landing, it says the winds are coming out of northwest, sorry, at 10 knots. So fairly gentle wind. But if you look at the flight planning map for the software, it's showing that we have wind speeds that are higher than that at 12 knots. So I'm not sure why there's that discrepancy. So METAR data in the software lines up with METAR data real world. If we were to check this, we'd see the same information, so that's accurate. I just think the weather model is not quite as accurate as the data. Now, I'm not knocking it, I'm not saying it's bad, it's actually really good. Perhaps one of the best weather models in software I've seen outside of professional modeling software. So, you know, good job, Microsoft. You guys have done, I think, an outstanding job on not only creating a realistic flight model, but a realistic weather model that mimics real weather data fairly accurately. Now, does it mimic real world data at 100% accuracy? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But I think every year things get improved and made better, and maybe this year or next that'll get dialed in to where it's almost a one-to-one realistic representation as to what's going on in the world. So yeah, I'm anxiously awaiting with bated breath, so to speak. So we're almost Arena. So I'm going to go ahead and pull our range in close on the radar here. Weather-wise, everything looks really clear. There's nothing on this display. I don't see anything on our forward view or our top down, at least out to 50 miles. So everything looks really clear. I'm not expecting anything to pop up or sneak in or anything like that. The only thing I'm not comfortable with is the weather report I received earlier said we had winds coming out of the ocean, coming out of the west, going from you know, like west to east across the runway. I'm not sure if that matches the actual METAR data, the real world data. Not 100% or not a true one-to-one representation, but pretty close. So we'll see. I don't think these winds are variable, and that's something the software doesn't tell us through numbers numistically, that the wind speed is variable. Now, if I wanted to be accurate to true life, I could dial in ATIS and listen to information for approach and landing in the local area, but ATIS is just going to tell me what METAR says. It's just a verbal enunciation of numerical data. So, yeah, like I said, fingers crossed that things will improve, but it's just a very slight improvement. It's just a very small tweak, I think, is all it needs. And I think it'll be there realistically anyways. But for where it is now, today, if that was to be the best it could be, that would be good enough for me. So, I'm only speaking for myself. I can't speak for others. There's thousands of other people doing...
019er descend and maintain 10,000 feet.
All right.
Descend and maintain 10,000 feet, Doctor 019er.
We're descending on down to flight level 100. Descending into the local area right now, this marks the beginning of our initial approach. We're still about 4 minutes away from, I call it arena. They say arena over the radio, so I should probably call it what the ground's calling it. And arena will be our transition point where we turn back around to the northwest in anticipation for our final turn to the northeast on final. It's been my pleasure serving you. I've had a most enjoyable flight today. I hope you too. I hope you have also. Oh, something about headsets on. I start running my mouth and I can't get out what I'm trying to say. I've had a blast flying with everyone today. It's been my pleasure serving you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. We've got roughly half hour, 45 minutes before we're on the ground. We'll see how wrong I am in a few, but our estimated time of arrival should be based on our velocity, how fast we're going. And you can see when I pulled the throttles back, it went up to 252, and I think the slower we go, that'll get pushed out even further. So I think we're looking at about 2.5 hours of total flight time today from wheels up to wheels down. So I've had a blast flying around the world with you so far, and I hope you continue next week when we depart the local area. I'm so sorry, I cannot pronounce this, and I don't want to try. I'm just going to sound foolish, and it looks like a beautiful name of not only an airport but a country as well, so please forgive me. My American tongue gets all twisted up when it tries to pronounce things bigger than 2 syllables. So yeah, I hope you all join us and on our journey around the western coast of Africa. There's a few more places today I absolutely have to see. South Africa is one. When I land there, I want to take a subsequent flight around in a small aircraft, small general aviation aircraft, and see things like Victoria Falls. And Kenya, I want to see the savannah with the animals there, and I'd like to see if the software actually models elephants, giraffes, zebras, tigers, all the wildlife you see, or if it's just going to be barren ground. So interesting to find out one way or another. So stay tuned as we move further south. You can see the crosswinds are dying out the lower we get. So I'd imagine by the time we're on the ground, those winds that are coming slightly from behind should turn to slightly from the front. If not, I'm going to have to approach from the other end of the runway and change our approach. We'll see what happens the closer we get to the ground. When I was planning the flight, it showed a headwind, so see if that holds true. Let's turn landing lights on. We slowed our approach speed down to just a tick under 170. Alright, leveling that at flight level 100, 10,000 feet. Alright, barometer reset. A little bit higher than sea level, so not too bad. Difference of 0.05 inches of mercury. on the barometer. And once we get lower, if our headwind for landing is turned into a tailwind, I'll just request to land on the opposite end of the runway. So this runway goes from 020 to 200. So we'll just change it up and plan to land on the other end. But the lower we're getting to the ground, you can see the winds have weakened down to 30 knots, and we'll see if the direction changes into more of a headwind or direct crosswind. Won't know till we're a little bit lower, but if it's actually indeed a tailwind, we don't want to land with a tailwind. I'll just request a go around and request landing clearance from the opposite end of runway. So stay tuned. Weather data said winds coming out of 300, so that's coming out of the northwest. So we're landing into the northeast, so that should be right across our wings, left to right. And if that holds true, it shouldn't matter which runway. There's only one runway here, but it shouldn't matter which direction we land on. The wind direction would be identical as how we're going to feel it and fly through it. So we'll see. But if it is indeed turned into a tailwind, that means the opposite end of the runway would be the headwind we would like to approach and land into. So runway is still too far away for us to identify it. Still about maybe 65 miles out.
019er descend and maintain 4,000 feet. Keep speed not above 230 knots. Descend and maintain 4,000 feet. Keep speed not above 230 knots. Docker 019er.
All right, down we go. This is the end part of our initial approach. So once we make this, not the next nav point, not PP017, but the other one, Arito. Arito is going to mark the beginning of our final approach into the area. So we're making our final descent to
and 019er, you are 28 miles south. Descend and maintain 2,000 feet. Expect Vector's ILS runway 02 approach.
Okay.
Descend and maintain 2,000 feet. Expect Vector's ILS runway 02 approach. Donner 019er.
Well, they're prepping us for final right now, altitude-wise, so we'll be at our intercept altitude for the instrument landing system, so that's kind of good actually. We can slow down and take our time descending here. We're descending at 2,000 feet per minute, so we should be at flight level 2,000 here in roughly 2.5 minutes. So we can deploy our first notch of flaps. Two minutes remaining in the descent. Nothing spotted yet, but I think it's right there. It's just right out of view. I think that's the runway in the airport right there. Feet back on pedals here. We're now prepped for final. I think I've got enough coffee. Approaching 2,000 feet. Roughly 3 minutes before we make our right-hand turn on the final.
1019er, you are 17 miles south of Nouadhibou. Maintain present heading and altitude. Contact Nouadhibou Tower on 120.8.
Nouadhibou. Okay.
Maintain present heading and altitude. Tower on 120.8 Doher 019er. Nouadhibou Tower Doher Foxtrot, Mike 1019er, 17 miles, south inbound ILS runway 02 approach.
Doher Foxtrot, Mike 1019er, Nouadhibou Tower. Altimeter 29er.9er, 7 wind tree 55 at 27. Cleared ILS runway 02 approach.
Cleared ILS runway 02 approach Doher 019er.
Yeah, so it's almost a direct in headwind we're landing into, so okay. Does not match the real world data. You said the wind's out of 355. We're landing at 020. So it's slightly coming from the left to the right. But if we look at, whoops, that's the wrong button. If we look at the real world data, is still showing it coming out of 310, which is coming out of the left to right. And this is what was also showing when I planned the flight on the map. So something is aloof somewhere, but it's not the end of the world. So turn for final. Approach armed. Gear down, flaps down. Gear down and locked. I still do not see a runway. Unless it's in the haze over there. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's over here, and I can't see it. We're going to hold it at this altitude until we intercept the glide slope. So we're below it. You can see this green dot is coming down. Once that green dot is right here, we'll then be controlled on the glide slope for our descent into the area. So the tower had us come in on the low side. So we're coming in under glide slope. But once we reach the intercept point, it'll start putting us on a glide path for end of runway. And it is stupid windy. So I've got a feeling I'm gonna kiss the donkey again today, but you never know. Sometimes I get lucky. Glide slope intercepted. Yeah, the winds are variable because
Air 019er, wind tree 55 at 27. Cleared to land runway 02.
shit, 27 knot
Clear to
cross.
land runway 02 Docker 019er.
See, that does not line up to Metar weather data. So yeah, something is off big time. Runway's in sight. Yeah, this wind is highly variable. It is coming in gusts. You are in sight. End of runway. I can see the lights. All right, let's go for it. Autopilot disengaged. Inner marker beacon, we're on final. And we're down, not too bad. better than my last landing.
Dare 019, turn next taxiway.
Alright. I feel like I did something good today. Didn't plant us in the ground. That was not as bad as the Canary Islands.
Contact ground on 120.8.
But that was not an easy
120.8 for Docker 019er.
not an easy landing by any stretch of imagination. This requires parking clearance. Well, we already have it, so we'll just wait for ground traffic to clear. Who tries a forklift on a taxiway? Come on. That's not realistic. I could see if they're loading cargo, but just like tooling about, that doesn't make any sense. So our total flight time today was pretty close. It was about 2 hours and 25 minutes. Well, they're telling us to come forwards, but yeah, I'm not going to drive over the ground crew. All right. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for flying with us today. We are done with today's flight. Technically, we're not done with it until we do that. And the propeller stops. Thanks for flying. I've had a blast.